Alright guys, we're back in my garage for another episode of the B58 Digest. If you're new to the channel, I use these videos to help keep you updated on the latest developments in the B58 community. So if that's something that you're interested in, be sure to subscribe to the channel. There will be a lot more of these videos coming out in the future. So today we're going to be talking about a new turbo offering, and this one has been anticipated by some people, especially if you're coming from the S55 world. They're actually pretty well known over there. This turbo is made by a company called ASR Engineering, and they have a line of turbos called Kratos turbos. So these are basically designed to be stock location turbos that fit just like any other hybrid, but they do a little bit of extra work to cast their own manifolds and turbo housings to make it perform more similar to an aftermarket full-frame turbo. Now, for those of you that aren't familiar with the company, like I said, they have a pretty good history with S55 turbos. They've been selling them for a couple years now. They basically compete with any of the other hybrid turbos on the market, so like Pure Turbos, Vargas Turbos, and all of those different companies. However, they are a company that make very high flowing aftermarket turbos. They were on the first M4 to dyno 1,000 wheel horsepower on a dyno jet, which was a really big deal. They were on the cover of, Performance BMW magazine, and a lot of different articles were made about that car. And they've dynoed as high as 1,150 wheel horsepower on one of their shop cars. So these turbos definitely have been known to support a lot of power, and a lot of people that are shooting for really high horsepower builds end up going with these turbos. Now for the B58, they're pretty much bringing a lot of that technology over to our single turbo setup. Now I'm going to try to rattle this off without sounding like I'm just reading from the catalog, but the way that they describe the B58 turbo is it's a forged billet compressor wheel with a dual ceramic ball bearing center housing, and it has expanded flow aerodynamic technology built into the turbine. Now, all of these words basically mean that the turbo is designed to flow a lot of air and run at extremely high speeds without affecting the reliability and durability of the turbo. So most everybody has their own way of trying to go about this, but ASR Engineering is also pairing this with a larger AR in the exhaust housing. So they're going to be casting their own turbo folds and building the turbo design in with that so that it can flow as much air as possible at higher RPM. So basically that just means that it's going to look like a hybrid and install like a hybrid, but it should perform again more similar to a larger full frame setup. Now that also means that no core is required, so they're going to be supplying you with a complete turbo assembly, and all you're going to need to do is remove your stock turbo and install it in the exact same place. Now at this time, they have provided some initial dyno results. So they're testing on a 740i, which was kind of surprising, obviously pretty rare to see a car like that with an upgraded turbo. But just keep in mind, of course, with dyno results on these cars, especially with the 7 Series, you're going to have a lot more drivetrain losses because they have, heavier drive shafts, axles, big, 20-inch wheels and things like that. But this car did get over 640 wheel horsepower at 28 PSI, which is pretty typical for most of the hybrids or aftermarket turbos on our cars, especially because this is a pretty simple setup. All it has is a Dorch Stage 2, so they're not limited by the turbo, they're limited by their fuel system. And you can see by how the chart looks, pretty much that horsepower curve is climbing all the way towards redline, so that's a good indication that they're kind of riding the limits of the fuel pump as they get up in the RPM range. Now, they were limited by fuel. They only ran it on E30, and it began breaking up around 6,300 RPM, so that's why the dyno runs short. I think that's pretty typical. Even in my testing, I shared with you guys that I had to bump up to E40, and a lot of people even go up to E50 to get the most out of their cars on a DI-only setup. So it'll be nice to see if they could do that on the car, but again, it's really not going to tell us anything because we know they're limited by the high pressure fuel pump, so at most they would see maybe 700 wheel horsepower. So I think while this is good, they definitely have some more information that they want to share with us in the future. They're hopefully going to put this on a car with port injection and maybe even a built engine so we can truly see the capacity of the turbo. Based on their analysis, they're estimating that the wheel can flow up to 1,000 wheel horsepower or more. But of course, there are other restrictions around the compressor housing and the exhaust housing that they need to account for when they're designing this turbo. So they're going to look at the flow restrictions, particularly on the exhaust side, because they think that there are some limitations built into trying to maintain the twin scroll nature of our turbos. And so if that does end up being a bottleneck and preventing them from hitting those limits, then they're open to modifying that and potentially either offering two different turbos. So maybe one that spools a little quicker but has lower capacity, and then one that has a little bit more lag but can make a lot more power. Or they'll just try to blend, the best of both worlds and offer one turbo setup that can flow as much as possible with minimal sacrifice on spool. They also are planning on additional turbos coming to the market. So right now they have the S58 turbos designed and they're doing their initial analysis on their first castings. And then after that, they're going to be working on B58 TU turbos as well. So for all of you guys with Gen 2 B58s, they are going to be making an offering for you. They're focusing on 6-port at this time just because there are so many more out there, as well as all the new ones that are going to be being purchased over the next several years. With the 2-port version, there just isn't as big of a market, and so many of the 2-port cars that are going to be modified have already been modified. So they're still not sure if they're going to end up making a turbo offering there. If that's something that you're interested in, definitely send them an email and reach out and just kind of, share with them that you're interested so they know that people are looking out for it. And the last thing is pricing. So again, this isn't for sale yet, but just looking at the S55 offering, they definitely are on the high end. But keep in mind with this one, you don't have to return a core or do anything on that end. So they're planning on being pretty competitive. It might be a little bit more expensive than some of the hybrids on the market, but it should have more horsepower capacity. And without needing to send a core back for a refund, I think they can definitely, land in the middle somewhere to keep them competitive. So yeah, hopefully this video helps. Just kind of wanted to give you guys a heads up that this is going to be coming down the line. Hopefully sometime before the end of summer. Time will tell when it actually hits the market based on, their supply chain and everything. Just making sure they have parts available to actually sell. So definitely follow their social media if you're interested in keeping up with that. So that's it for this video. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed and hope you found this information helpful. Let me know what else you guys want to see me talk about. Some people have shared interest that they want me to talk about other platforms, and I considered, focusing a little bit of time on researching S58 stuff. I know I don't have an S58, but that is obviously a very fast growing platform. And especially when these DMEs get unlocked, I see things moving very quickly for them as far as development is concerned. So if you guys want to see me share information about that, like I know they just got XHP available, so now their transmission is unlocked for tuning and just a lot of other things on the horizon. So if you guys are interested in hearing me talk about that, let me know. And yeah, thanks for watching. I hope this helps. And if you have any other questions or comments, leave them down below.